In this video, we're going to take a look at the Noodler's Charlie. Let's jump straight to the end with my thoughts on this pen. This would be a very easy pen for people to really tear down because it's free with a bottle of ink. But I can't tell you that I was anything other than excited when I got it with my 4.5 milliliter bottle of Noodler's ink. I actually was very happy to have gotten it. And other than the fact that it's too small for me, I think this is a very good pen for people to take a look at, especially since it's free with a bottle. That's hard to complain about, yet I know there are people with complaints of it. I can say that by the end of this page of writing, because of how thin the pen is, I do feel cramping in my hand. It has more feedback than I would prefer, though it is not scratchy. So my major problem really comes to the fact that it's too thin for me. It's one of the reasons that I didn't like using a lot of ballpoint pens. The thinness of the pen causes pains in my hand and makes me not want to write as much, so my writing gets even worse the longer I go with it. Now that we know how I feel about the Noodler's Charlie, let's see how I got to that opinion, starting with the unboxing. The Noodler's Charlie came in a box like this, because you only get it when you buy a 4.5 ounce bottle of their ink, for free with the ink. It does come with a bottle of ink. It is free with a bottle of ink. So I guess you could say the packaging might be, a few dollars for the pen and a free bottle of ink, or you're buying a bottle of ink with a free pen. Either case, it's not too bad. With the pen out of the box, we need to get to the nib. And as long as it doesn't take 20 turns to uncap a pen, I'm generally okay. But how many turns does it take to uncap this pen? The Noodler's Charlie takes 1, 2 turns to uncap. Two turns to uncap is quite a bit more than I prefer in my pens. That being said, I don't have an issue with this pen drying out when it's left for a few days. I typically ink them up a couple of days before I'm going to use them, just to let them sit for 2 or 3 days. This had no problem. This gets us to the nib. This pen has a steel fine nib on it. I have an appreciation for the simple nib that comes in this pen. Considering the size of the pen, its being simple is a good thing, and this nib is tipped, which is more than you can say for generally the nibs you get in your Ahab. I wouldn't mind them tipping those nibs. If you enjoy videos like this, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. Now, let's ink this pen up. The Noodler's Charlie is an eyedropper fill fountain pen that holds approximately 2.2 milliliters of ink. The ink of the day is Sailor Spider Lily. As an eyedropper, it holds a little over 2 mils of ink, which is absolutely plenty. Again, that much ink, I don't see most people really going through it in a day. I like how easy they are to clean out. Initially, I didn't care for them, but this pen is one of the pens that got me to enjoy eyedroppers more. As a habit, I don't normally post my pens, but some people prefer to post their pens, and some pens need to be posted in order to be used comfortably. You can post this pen, and I frequently find that I need to post this pen. It's very thin, which in the section, which brings my fingers back towards the threads, which I don't honestly have a problem with. I need that length to make it feel just a little bit better. It's just at that cusp. I never know if it comes through on camera. It's like a magical tiny line that if the pen doesn't make it, it's just too short. And this is just too short for me to use unposted. It does post nice and secure, not any kind of a problem. Now, the important part, the writing sample. As I said earlier, that the longer the writing sample goes on, the more I can feel the fatigue in my hand, and as I feel that, I wind up moving the pen around a bit to relieve some of that. I made a very conscious effort to make sure I wasn't holding on to it tight while writing this, because that only increases the fatigue that I feel. It's because it's a thin pen. So if you like thin pens, this is absolutely a very good pen, worth the price of a bottle of their ink. People like to dedicate a pen to the Noodler's Bay State Blue. You can get this pen with the 4.5 ounce bottle of the Noodler's Bay State Blue, and then you don't even have to worry about it. Noodler's gives you a pen to go ahead and use. Not just a pen, actually, I think a very good pen. A pen that you can use to hand to someone. Don't hand to a child because they're going to want to open it up and watch that ink spill out. I know from experience. I really do, when I see this, if I wasn't teaching kids and I was teaching people to write as adults, don't judge my writing. I wouldn't have a problem with a bunch of these pens. I really do think they write very well. I think they're pretty responsive under my hand. You can squeeze a little bit of line variation out of it if you really want to. It is quite stiff. It is a steel nib. But again, it's a free pen. So it's one of those let's not be too harsh. If it was $100, we could say all kinds of things, but when it's free and it writes well and it doesn't have any problems, then it's great. Another added benefit of the Noodler's pens is you are encouraged to really tinker with that pen, adjust the flow, mess with the nib. It's not going to be a big deal. It's a great opportunity to really learn how to do some of those fine adjustments on your own pen. Now for something a bit more standard in comparing writing size. I use Mnemosyne Blue to do this. And here's how it compares to a Yovo Extra Fine on the left, a medium in the middle, and a 1.1 stub on the right. I would say that this really does write like a fine towards a medium, and without squeezing out any kind of line variation from it. I like its consistent line that it gives you, even though if you want it, again, you can push it. Just, I don't know that it's worth it for that line variation. So how does it compare in writing size to other nibs I've used? Looking at the writing of a Noodler's Charlie, which writes about like a fine, here it is next to a Lamy All-Star with a fine nib, a Mnemosyne Emperor with a medium fine, a fountain pen Revolution Guru, which writes like a medium nib, a Pilot Metropolitan with a medium nib, and a Schaefer Pop Yoda, which is marked as a medium, but writes a little bit finer than that. So it isn't a review without some size comparison. Here it is capped. Here it is uncapped. And here it is posted. Having seen the pics, it's quite obvious that this is a much smaller pen. And that's been my complaint the entire time. The pictures just make it very obvious to see. So it shouldn't in itself be any kind of a real problem for that. At this point, we have a dirty pen that we need to clean. Be sure to check out the next pen review video where we're going to take a look at the Noodler's Conrad. If you want to be able to support not just my channel, but any reviewer, then when you make a purchase, be sure to tell that retailer where you heard about it. Thanks for watching.